What's up, you guys? Sales Bro Pod episode 20. This time around, for a second time, we got Mr. Michael Hewitt. Thanks for coming on, man.
Of course, dude. Back again for the very first time.
Yeah, back again for the first time. Yeah, so you were supposed to be like one of the first like 5 episodes, I feel, and then we recorded and it didn't come out the way we wanted it to. So even better for you guys, since we recorded that. We've actually like met in person a couple of times, got to know each other, our businesses, what we're up to. So should make for a better episode. Just to kind of preface the audience, Michael, like what are you up to right now?
Right now, what I am doing is working on Unleash Your Voice, which works with both enterprise companies as well and coaches as well as individuals. And really what we work on is helping people and companies to match their voice to their message. So really the voice and unlocking the voice, developing a commanding, authentic, and charismatic tone is really just the gateway into figuring out what it is about you or your brand that allows you to be one of one and establish really unique, non-commoditized positioning so that you can dominate your marketplace.
I love it. It's very unique. And for those of you who are like, what does that really mean? I mean, there's going to be some community members that are listening to this. And if you guys were in the community when Michael came in and did the free class, then you know exactly what it means. It's extremely valuable. So you guys are definitely in for a good one this time around. Let's take it back, man. Let's take it back to before you were, kind of in the position you're at now. Have you always been? Well, actually, let me preface this a little bit more. Like, Michael is outside of helping you unleash your voice, like he's a pretty esteemed sales professional as well. So, little context for you there. But taking it back, man. When did the idea of the whole like vocal capabilities kind of come forefront to you?
There's 2 instances or 2 periods in my life. There was initially when I got on stage when I was about 10 or 11. I started doing musicals at a children's theater in my hometown, Littleton, Colorado, or now Centennial. But I didn't really realize that it was anything unique. Everybody around me was singing or performing or doing things in that arena. And when I was in class, like if a teacher would call on me, okay, now it's Michael, you read from the book. I was always really good at basically giving people a cold read, just like read from the textbook and it's going to sound like an audiobook. I didn't realize that there was anything unique or special about the ability to sing or my voice in particular until high school, when I became like the youngest person basically in this select high school choir, or, I was the only junior, everybody else was a senior. And then that spring for the spring musical, I auditioned, we were doing Beauty and the Beast, and I auditioned and I got the role of Gaston. And it was a funny convergence of different aspects of my existence because I had grown up a fat kid and that was my identity heading into high school. I was like the butt of everybody's jokes in my friend group. And I was starting at a new high school in a new district and playing football. So I committed to really no longer like being that kid, and I lost a bunch of weight and then was hitting the weights. So a couple of years later, now I'm both singing and I'm lifting weights, and I get this role of Gaston, which I didn't really know. And it ended up being like the perfect thing for me because, even then, like I could flex, like I had a little bicep, but the role itself was really perfect for my voice. It's a baritone role and it's on the lower side. And we didn't have an orchestra, or we didn't have microphones, but we had an orchestra and a full house. So then I was able to basically be heard all the way at the back of the house over this orchestra, hit all the lows and hit all the highs, and then look this part. And that kind of was like my breakthrough moment. I got a lot of feedback. And then from there, I just totally pivoted from thinking I was going to go be a philosophy or a theology or econ major at a liberal arts school to, oh, I'm going to like go down this very competitive, very niche path of BFA musical theater, which then led to becoming an opera major.
Yeah. I see the shirt at Rice.
Yeah. So this was actually, this is my graduate degree. So what ended up happening was I was auditioning for the BFA musical theater track, which is like a very competitive, again, very niche track that is really meant to like put people on Broadway. And there's a handful of schools that have these, you know, if you're a liberal arts major, you're going to go to Harvard, or, you know, if you're a smart kid, you're going to go to Harvard or the Ivy League schools. If you're talented in a certain kind of way, especially, you know, back in 2008, 2009, you're going to go to a BFA MT program. And there's a handful that are like really the top of the top. And I got into the one that focused on what I identified then as being my weak point. Because this is always how I've thought, is like, I need to build up my weak areas in order to be the most viable version of myself. So I went to the school that was known for building up actors instead of the school that was focused on, you know, something else. During that process of auditioning for these different schools, and then even when I was in that BFA program, I kept getting feedback like, hey, you should go be an opera singer. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but what it meant was that people who had experience in that area professionally and academically were like, your voice has a certain set of qualities about it that we don't hear in this other world. It can do this other thing, but it can also do this thing. You should go do that. So it took me a couple of years to finally like start listening to people. Again, that's like a pattern that I wish that I had eliminated sooner. But when I transferred into the opera world, a lot just exploded for me. There's a line from a book by Hermann Hesse, Demian. I'm really big into Hesse. I've read most of his major works. And it says something akin to, you know, when a man or when a person starts to basically accept their destiny or like do what they're called to do, like the world just opens up for them. And so I was having success and getting good feedback in that musical theater world. But once I said, all right, I'm going to be an opera singer, and went down this path, a ton of doors just opened for me. And that's how I ended up at Rice. At the time that I was there, it was the premier vocal training institution in the country. And dude, I mean, I learned this school, like this program, a couple of mentors there, like made me who I am today. It was a really incredible experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sweet. You touched on very kind of a little bit ago that you were the you know, you had some weight on you. You were the butt of your friends' jokes. Do you think that, you know, what you discovered that you were pretty good at, which is using your voice, did that kind of, I'm trying to like identify the intersect between those two parts of you, right? Did that like help get you out of like being the butt of the jokes, or like were they complementary?
I was the butt of the jokes, I think, because I was not embracing who I was, and I was letting some exterior thing define me, which is funny because your exterior is really, it's a reflection of where you're at internally. And obviously, like, dude, I was a kid. Like, there was forces way bigger than myself that I was like not equipped to even identify, let alone fight, that was leading to a lot of that. But in terms of, you know, the voice helping me not to be a butt of those jokes, in some ways it helped me to be taken more seriously and to take myself more seriously. But ultimately, like, what helped me to shed that identity or to get out of that was just massive action towards not being fat anymore. Like, I had to unfat myself, and the way that I did it then was, you know, now with a ton of fitness knowledge and results for myself and others in that area, not how I would advise, but ultimately is what I had to do. I just went balls to the wall for like 3 or 4 months, and I lost like 40 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good segue into you know, the thing that you did for a while, which was the fitness coaching, right? Running your own program. I mean, running sales for that, running operations, the whole thing, basically. Can you share with the audience, because a lot of the audience if they're coming from my end, they probably are part of that high ticket sales world. Would you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about your experience, like running your own high ticket fitness program?
Absolutely. I loved it. It taught me so much that I didn't even realize, a lot of which I didn't even realize that I was learning in the moment. And one of the best things, again, a hindsight thing, was like, wow, I'm connected to so many people who are still in my world. Like, I'm getting coffee tomorrow morning with a friend of mine who actually was the first guy who was leading sales in the thing that exposed me to high ticket. What I learned in there was, and it was the thing that ultimately shut me down, or that I shut down my operation because of, you've got to delegate as soon as possible if you are a person who is running the whole show. And even if you are an entrepreneur in somebody's organization, you've got to delegate as quickly as possible so that you can focus and stay in your zone of genius. And then also, I think maybe the most major lesson is that value is not in any way tied to time spent, but it's in a result achieved. So even though, there were periods of time when I would, for the same amount of money, work with people and not do a one-on-one training session, or then work with people and exclusively do one-on-one training sessions, that's a commoditization, and that's a dilution of your value. And it can be overcome just by positioning and by being really clear on what you have to offer, and ultimately your ability to step up and lead these people who are trusting you. So if you come in and you say, hey, am I going to get one-to-one training sessions? Back then I would have said, yeah, at a certain point I would have said, yeah, you are. We're going to meet once a week and it's going to be for this. Part of that was quality assurance. I really wanted to make sure that they were getting the kind of quality and the what I was teaching them, doing things the right way and developing the right mindset, just to have more touch. But part of it was also saying, like, I'll do whatever I need to, like, take this money. I'll do whatever I need to lock you in. As opposed to now, I'm much more comfortable with the idea that you're coming to me to get something about me. You're coming to me because of something that I have that you want. And in my fitness journey, one-to-one fitness sessions and one-to-one trainings have not been a major part of it. Because what I really needed to get the results that I'm offering, that I'm helping others to achieve, or that somebody comes to me wanting for themselves, is like, dude, I'm a fucking monster with myself, dude. I am a relentless maniac about getting done what has to be done, and about getting uncomfortable, and about holding myself to certain standards. And you don't need a one-to-one hand holding for that.
Yeah. You said that in hindsight, you would have delegated a lot faster for things that weren't necessarily aligned with your area of genius. What did you feel was your area of genius when you were doing this, and what wasn't?
Coaching people is my area of genius.
Okay.
And back then, I think having an idea of what to name things, or how to talk about it, or who to serve, but actual market implementation of marketing strategies and consistency of posting in different areas and things like that was not a strong suit for me then. I hadn't realized how to tie the similarity between what I was doing for myself in the gym, or how I would practice music and make sure that things were right, to, showing up in these channels and posting and starting conversations. I think that an area that I certainly could have delegated was marketing, perhaps even, yeah, I would say marketing. Sales, I would have been hesitant to delegate, just because I really felt that, given the structure of the operation, that was where we were forming a deeper bond, and where I would really get to say, like, look, Dylan, like, what can I help you with, dude? Like, where do you want to go? That would then inform how we are going to train and work later. But I think I also could have delegated sales too. Like, there was a really limiting story around, I'm not going to find somebody who's going to be tactful and treat this with respect, or is actually quality. And that's just not true. I could have looked harder. I could have interviewed people.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
Yeah. What were because of what you just mentioned about the sales calls that you would take, I sold fitness for quite some time as just a sales rep, not my own thing. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you had after taking as many sales calls around that as you did? Like, how'd you get good at it?
Takeaways: disqualify people sooner. Understand when a person is not ready to buy, and and call that out, and don't shame, and have something that you can send them to.
Yeah.
I think that there's also, and this sort of, it's a fine line between, the high pressure sales tactic and also just like what is good for running a business. But I think at a certain point, you do need to take some money on the call, or you need to be so confident in yourself and have such an abundant pipeline that you can just say, look, dude, like, let me know when you're ready. I'll send you this. Like, let me know when you're ready. But those people, like, you can't expect to ever hear from them again.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to bring somebody on prematurely and then risk having some churn or some buyer's remorse. So I think that really the thing that I learned is that if you can, at the top of the funnel, the more you can disqualify incorrect prospects and qualify and excite really great prospects and remove all the friction around that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, a lot of people in the high ticket space are, one call close, collect money on the call. And I think people on both ends, like the high ticket and like the enterprise, are both kind of like coming closer to each other. And they're like, you know what? They're not completely wrong on the other side, as like the markets get more sophisticated. So now you went through that. You were running the whole show, getting people results. When did you decide, like, hey, man, it's time to hang this one up?
It was at the end of 2020, and I was invested in so many different coaching programs and services. I was making more money than I had before, but I wasn't keeping any of it, outside of like paying for the bills. It was all just going back into basically these programs. And I was really missing the point. Part of the point earlier was like, just delegate, get somebody else to do this. I was still learning so much, and I freaking love learning, that I was happy to be in there. But at a certain point, I had to be like, there's a different way to do this that will give me less stress and will also put more money in my pocket. So it was at the end of 2020 that I pretty much just decided I'm just going to go the normal people route. I'm going to go get paid to learn on the job. And I looked at, as you were saying, there's all those different functions. There's marketing, there's sales, there's fulfillment, and there's, renewal, and there's operations. For some reason, this was before it was a, thing online or in the Twitter world. Even though I had been a longtime reader of Bowtied Bull, even back to the Wall Street Playboys days, I, for some reason, hadn't put this together. But I ended up going to sales. And I was like, well, let me look at what's the opposite of opera and is also going to be really durable for whatever the next macroeconomic event is that shuts the world down. Well, basically like a huge future-proof TAM. Seems like maybe cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. And so I Googled, some of that stuff, and I landed on a company that was at the intersection of both of them. And then I ended up starting a career in enterprise sales, thinking I wanted to be in the trenches of what was building a business and learn that way.
And you were able to secure an account executive role right out of the gate?
Because of my high ticket experience. And this is what I think is so interesting. It gets lost in that discussion online. There is so much nuance here. And I think that people really want their horse to win, but they don't realize that like there is no winner. Like if you just level up the profession of sales, and if you just level up people, then everybody wins. That's way more net positive than saying high ticket is better or B2B SaaS is better. I was interviewing for an entry-level role, right, which they have the same function. They just go by different names. Appointment setter in high ticket, BDR or SDR in B2B. I was interviewing for a BDR role because I didn't have any corporate experience. And the recruiter asked me, oh, tell me about MCH coaching. Like, how are you getting clients? And I told her, and she was like, well, you should be an account executive. And so I interviewed, then I switched my track to interviewing for the AE role, and I got it. And it ended up being like really a perfect fit, both the company and where I was in my life and my previous experience, the team that I landed on, and the mentors that I had there. It all just lined up.
Yeah. When you started that role, the AE role, what were some of the biggest surprises that you were faced with when you were going from selling your own thing, fitness, B2C, to B2B? Like, was there anything that hit you in the face and you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting that?
I was continually surprised or caught off guard by how many steps there were to the process. And that, I think, is the biggest difference between those two spaces, is that high ticket, if you're selling a B2B high ticket solution, you're probably talking to like one decision maker, maybe two. And if you're selling a B2C, like a fitness solution, you're talking to one decision maker, and then maybe they got to bring their spouse on. But here it's like, I'm going to sell to you, and then I got to get in touch. If I don't start from the top down, and even if you do, I got to sell to all the different levels in this hierarchy. And then I got to sell to the different lateral business units that are impacted or might have a say in this. And then I got to sell to the general counsel and the legal team and procurement, and then like somebody who has sign off over the entire budget who's not a part of this business unit, like the CFO. And then I got to bring in people from my organization to help with that. And so the way that I see it is, in high ticket, let's say like we go off of a script or of this model of like one, qualification call, discovery, and close. And then you're working off of a script or a framework. B2B is really just an expansion of that. You're constantly doing discovery and qualification, and what's in the high ticket sales script, where are you at? Where do you want to go? What's stopping you from getting there? What would it look like if this were solved, etc.? Are you an action taker? All of that stuff is just expanded, and it's done much more gently and over the course of this whole process at a macro level.
Yeah.
You're making sure that you can make sense of that for the business, but then at a micro level for each of those conversations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Did you feel, because me myself, like I've started in B2C, like in-home sales, and transitioned to high ticket sales, B2C. And as of lately, I've been more on like the B2B high ticket thing, where it does get closer to that more formal B2B SaaS structure, where it's like chain of command, selling to multiple parties. When you transition from selling your own thing, shorter sales cycle, to, having to sell to all these parties that are maybe involved, maybe not involved, maybe they just need a sign. How did you deal with the feeling? Because like we're talking some of these, sales cycles are spanning out like months and months and months and quarters, and maybe potentially like the course of a year, right? Over the course of a year. How did you cope with the thought of like, did I do enough there, or should I have done more? Like basically mentally managing the time that would elapse between like the beginning and the end. How did you do that?
Well, you lose a couple, and then you look at how much opportunity cost you lost there, and not just opportunity cost, but how much time you wasted, and look out for how not to do that again. But then you also have, you got people breathing down your neck, for better or for worse, not just your director, but then the VP. And these are, they're both individuals who are really sharp and who are looking at what you're working on pretty objectively, and who have way more experience than you do. And so you start to, you manage that by understanding that you have a lot of biases that you might not recognize. They'd call that happy ears. And then by having a ton of accountability with with high pressure there. So you've got the accountability and your intrinsic desire to to do good for yourself and to make money off of this commission. But then, in the right company, if there's a culture of, winning in leaderboards, you're like, dude, I want to be on the leaderboard. But then you've also got I respect my boss or my bosses, and they're going to ask me about this tomorrow. And I need to, make sure that I've got it together. But in terms of looking at that go over the course of, months, you've got to understand, or rather, in that seat, I had to develop this understanding that even though there might be a deal cycle that closes pretty quickly, well, this one's not going to be like that. And as long as you understand that and do that discovery up front, then you can forecast that and share that with your higher ups, and then you plan accordingly. Say look, this is going to close quickly. This is not going to need that much, and I can prove it because of this. And then it closes quickly. This one, yeah, they say they're going to close here, but we've got all these other steps that we still need to figure out, and this is how we're going to figure them out. I don't see that happening when we say, so I think we need to expect this later. And then you act accordingly. And then ultimately, just having a big fat pipeline makes all of that a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, because especially myself, as I venture more into that space, just managing the mental side of it. It's did I do enough? Did I push hard enough? Are we on pace? Should we even be on this pace that we're on? Which, yeah, it's good. It's good to hear your perspective on that.
Well, how are you managing that right now? With that, the different stuff that you've got going on, what are you telling yourself? What are you seeing?
So the role I'm talking about now, I'm pretty new to, but just going off of, I know the salespeople on the team, so just going off what they tell me, yeah, man, this is more of that longer sales cycle. There's people that need to be brought in, people that this needs to be ran through, different departments, all that. So I'm right now just kind of trusting the process. I've been in sales for long enough to know that it's not black and white. Yeah, so technical difficulty. Sorry, guys listening. Running it by the people on the team, the fact that I'm not fired, the fact that the boss isn't pissed, or he's like, yeah, that's good, getting reassurance. That's kind of how I've been managing that so far. But yeah, like I was saying, I've been in sales long enough to realize it's not black and white. And I mean, that's kind of sales, man. There is no guarantee on really anything. So you just get used to that after a while.
And it's all done. All great results happen, especially if they happen in a short time frame, all from standing on the shoulders of giants and relying on other people for counsel and guidance that you can't see yourself. And like you said, dude, trusting the process, it's huge. There's a process that's there for a reason, both your own process and then a greater process for the company that you're selling for.
Yeah. So you got this role, and from what I understand, you were able to leverage it into something better. What were some of the when did you realize hey, I could probably do a little bit more with this skill that I've learned?
It's a great question. The skill of sales and the understanding and perspective there.
Yeah,
of voice.
Sales and the act of selling, and then everything that goes along with the role that you were working.
Oh, just the account executive role?
Yeah.
I think I started to realize that. Wait, when you say do something more with it, what do you mean?
When did you realize? I mean, maybe you got to the point where you're like, hey, man, this vehicle, I'm capped out, and I could probably make more of the time that I'm spending, or.
Yeah. I think at a certain point, there was a certain point when I was like, okay, I think I get how this goes. I think I get how B2B sales goes. I've sold deals for 205K ARR. I've sold deals for 12K ARR, everywhere in between. Managed accounts, jumped into accounts and renewed and upsold that I didn't originally sell, cold called the biggest decision makers at the biggest companies in a really cut in an industry where they really don't like vendor outreach, and did that successfully. I'd done all of these things, and again, loving to learn, I like also to reverse engineer and think like, what's making this possible? And vocal skill and performance skill definitely played a big role in that. But at some point I had an idea took hold that I was like, at what point do you just use these skills for your own thing? At what point do you start selling your own thing versus somebody else's thing? And what's the difference? Like, what do you really want? What are the pros and cons of that? And so that was what gave me more confidence and also created a little bit more urgency for me to start building up and exploring what that own thing of mine would be.
Yeah. There was probably so many different ways that you could have taken it the second way around, right? So you had the fitness thing first, and then, I mean, now you've landed on Unleash Your Voice. What other things, if any, were you weighing out, like considering?
I think one of the things that I had thought about was maybe some sort of cybersecurity consultancy, not from a standpoint of trying to act as a practitioner of cybersecurity and help you do that, but a value added reseller or partner. I'll help you find solutions because I really love the cybersecurity industry and I really love talking to different companies and exploring their solutions and seeing how they fit in terms of like what results they deliver for a company looking to improve their cybersecurity posture. I thought about that, but then really what I love is helping people discover their own power and build confidence and get closer to their purpose and develop the skills that are required to go after that and make that a reality. And so I had been doing basically voice coaching for 3 years, but not in any kind of serious way. I would just through reputation and word of mouth, people would ask me for a workshop one-on-one to help them have a deeper, more commanding voice. And then as I started to do that with more and more people, I started realizing that even if you have a deeper, more commanding voice and how you say what you say really matters, what you say does matter to an extent, whether you say it to somebody else literally or whether you are figuratively believing it and telling it to yourself. And so when I started to tie those two together and develop a framework around how to do that, how to do both of those things and then blend them, that was when Unleash Your Voice started to take form. And a round of layoffs, or rather getting caught up in a layoff situation, is what enabled me to take what I had been building up on the side and on the weekends and really just start exploring that more.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I mean, I feel like when we first met, and I don't even know when that was, maybe it was earlier this year.
It was
Uh,
March.
I feel like, yeah, you hadn't, and maybe you did, maybe we just didn't talk about it, but you weren't as focused on the stuff behind the voice, which now it seems like is a really big focus. And it's, in my eyes, like it's a huge value add because, I mean, everybody knows that saying. It's not about what you say, it's about how you say it, but it's like, it does matter. Like it absolutely does matter. Um, so like transitioning more into the vocal stuff and what you're currently up to. Um, I'm curious, how does selling what you're selling now, how does that compare to your previous high ticket sales experience with the fitness stuff?
I am much clear. I think that all disciplines, all crafts, whether it's B2B or whether it's B2C, I think that they all lead to the same place. They all lead to some kind of self actualization. In other words, they all help you to get closer to fulfilling your purpose. Whether that's, fitness, whether that's voice, whether that's craft of sales, whether that's like copywriting, whatever it is. The difference between now and back then, outside of the actual deliverable and the scope of the deliverable, is that I'm much clearer on how I'm helping people, on its importance to me and on its importance to them. And I've had a lot more results in my own life to have that kind of confidence, and have also done a lot more work in clarifying that to myself, so it changes how I clarify it to others.
Okay.
So now, there is a part of one of my offers where like fitness is involved, but it's not about fitness, and it's not about one-on-one workouts, and it's not about that. Fitness is just a part of that, because if you want to show up and speak confidently, yes, we'll unlock your voice and we'll train that in, but you've got to get comfortable being seen. And that requires like being seen literally and then being seen figuratively. So you've got to get comfortable having eyes on you, whether that's fitting into your clothes, whether that is having the confidence to say something, etc. So now I'm just much clearer on how much bigger the picture is.
That's super interesting because I mean it's so true. Like I know firsthand, dude. I used to be like super skinny, shy, awkward kid, and I'm still skinny. I'm still pretty lanky, but when I did start to put weight on and I started to get into sales and I started to just get more comfortable and confident, like a lot of things change. A lot of things change. What else besides how you're feeling in your physical self and the message behind what you're saying? Like, what else do you find to have a influence over the effectiveness, in which somebody speaks?
The trust that they have with themselves to be able to deliver on or fulfill what it is they're asking for people to take action on, and their abundance mindset, their willingness to, their courage to not let fear take over, and their willingness to trust that if they are holding themselves to a certain standard and doing and taking correct actions consistently with correct intention, everything is going to work out.
It's a very unique offering because, like, it's so easy to sell something where it's like, oh yeah, dude, if you do this, you're gonna make the money back times 3 in 6 months or something like that. And it's like it's so easy to use that as a crutch. And I mean, I'm not gonna say it in a bad way because like if that's what your thing does, and easy, like better for you, good for you, right? But like fitness, I think is an extension of that, where it's like, especially if you're selling B2C, you can't use the financial ROI crutch. And then now what you're doing, like, I feel like it's just a more evolved version of that. What, if any, do you offer like guarantees on your program? Like, is there any guarantees you put on that?
I think the way that I have structured and the way that I've been working with clients, we haven't really talked about a guarantee. If somebody was to want to back out, they of course could. I'm not interested because I'm not interested in holding people's feet to the fire. So no, there's no guarantee. But maybe there should be. Yeah.
No,
there's no guarantee.
I mean, like I think now there's like that debate out there, like, should you have a guarantee, shouldn't you? But like, if you're able to enroll people without some like fail safe, that just speaks more to the quality of what you're doing. Like, people are willing to trust you without that.
I was going down a Ben Settle. Do you know Ben Settle, copywriter? I was going down a Ben Settle rabbit hole last night, and he stopped offering guarantees or refunds in like 2010. And he said he had no drop in basically pipeline or quality of really no negligible effects. And I like that. I think that so much of that just comes down to positioning, because he said that the people who are asking about refunds almost without fail are the ones who are going to try to refund. And so to me, I just would say, yeah, I will. And I can look at current people that I'm working with or brands that I'm working with and say, yeah, I guess I guarantee you'll make more money. But obviously that's like, I can't guarantee that you're implementing what we talk about. I guarantee that if you implement what we're talking about, you're going to make more money. It might be hard to prove how much more money it's going to make you, but you will for sure in the short term make your money back. But there's so much asymmetric upside to what we do that it's like, if we change how you speak, we change how you think about yourself at a very deep and powerful level, you're going to be seeing opportunities and you're going to be seeing opportunities and taking advantage of them that you wouldn't otherwise take advantage of. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, and who knows where that leads you. So yeah, you'll for sure make back in the short term what you invest with me. But beyond that, like, dude, your life is going to change.
Yeah. That was the angle I would take when selling fitness. It's like, it's not about the number on the scale, dude. It's about you having the energy to hang out with your kids after work, and then when you show up to work, you actually feel better about yourself and you perform better, and then you make more, and your wife is like, obsessed with you because you're just taking care of the family. Like, it was like that. It's like you can't say, oh yeah, if you come lose this weight, your wife is gonna love you more and connect all the dots. Like, but the asymmetric upside is exactly what I would use to sell fitness when I was doing that. Right now, are you working with like mostly all business owners, or like what kind of people are you working with?
I work with a combination, it just depends on the offer. I work with venture-backed founders of, traditional, what we think about like, companies. I work with coaches who, have a company of their own, but obviously that exists outside of the corporate world. I work with individual contributors or salespeople, and that's really the bulk of who I'm working with. So I'm either working with them individually or working with them through working with their brand.
Cool. What are some of the biggest, like when you land a new partnership, what are some of the first like attack points where like you can make the most ground the fastest with a new client?
Identifying what they have coming up that they are going to be speaking for. So if that is, you have a podcast or you have an interview or a presentation coming up, we'll get right in there and we will, or, you're doing a video sales letter or sending out video assets or sales calls. We'll get right in there and we'll attack the voice and really we'll unlock it. Get people away from sounding monotone, get people away from a weak or nasally tone, and start to develop the skills by way of unlocking. When I say unlocking, what I mean is everybody has the ability to communicate naturally, like at birth, but we unlearn it along the way. So we unlearn what's unnatural and then just remind you like, hey, you've got all these colors and abilities and parts of your voice here that you are not using. And then we train that in so that, I don't have to be there holding your hand, and you can use those things whenever you want. And then we pair that with what it is they're actually going to be saying, or what they think they're going to be saying, what they would say if they weren't working with me during whatever those events are going to be or instances are going to be. And then we start to look at what are you saying and why. And then we make sure that it's actually speaking the language of the person that or group that they're going to be speaking with. So if you are a founder, you might say, we unlock your voice. Now you're feeling good. You're booming. You sound great. You get that deep, that good, commanding, authentic sound. And then you're also able to really communicate more sensitively and with a more empathetic tone and get the head voice in there. But then we look at what you're saying. Are you going to be feature dumping on me and just making my eyes glaze over? We don't want that, because even if you sound really commanding and engaging, I'm still zoning out. So then I just, walk them through a series of questions and I try to understand what they actually do for the people that they're talking about. And then I will, with them, restructure that script in a way that they are excited to speak about, that their prospects are going to understand, and it's going to lead to what they want. So that's the first thing. We usually get that done in about an hour.
Dude, it's so unique because like I've been putting together a sales program, and part of it is like some of the stuff that I know about speech. And honestly, dude, that was one of the most like intricate sections of what I've created so far. And I doubt it's even scratching the surface of the work that you do. How, besides you just being one on one with someone like this and listening to the way they speak, like, are there other ways that you track progression with your clients?
Yeah, we can look at results that they're getting. You know, some clients will send me calls to review, and I can tell like right away, like, this is a different voice that's showing up. But it's not just a different voice. They have this different voice, but then they also ask different questions. They sit in the pocket with whoever they're listening to much more comfortably, and they're able to get to something more relevant on a shorter time frame and then continue exploring from there. So you can see that right away. And then, you know, outside of that, one of the obvious quantifiables is, are you making more money? Did you close more deals? Did you get more yeses or more funds offering you money? And so we see that too.
Cool. Cool. What think of something.
Wait, I got a question for you, dude. In that bit about speech that you're working on, like, are there any parts in there that are stumping you, or that like you want to explore more fully, or were there any parts of it that really excited you to talk about and share what you had learned?
Yeah, it was definitely super surface level, like just kind of giving people a foundation, because it's just one part of like the whole thing that I'm creating. But I was really just going over like the concepts of, you know, tonality and cadence and inflections and like just like all those little characteristics, and then little definitions, examples. I don't know. I feel like that may be one of the topics where I may not know what I don't know. You know, I've taken enough sales training, and you know, I've spoke with you a good amount. You came into the training, which was awesome, to feel like I know, like I have a good baseline. But yeah, I feel like besides the baseline and kind of putting out what I already know, it might be the I don't know what I don't know situation. So
With the voice, dude, there's always more to learn.
yeah, like I mean, I've heard you say this a couple of times when we've met. Is like the concept of head voice that wasn't in there. Head voice is, I mean, from what I know, it's like that softer. It's more like up here, not down here, and it gives off what you said, like more of an empathetic um, feeling.
So that's just about, it's just this idea that, like, and dude, obviously, after doing basically this second podcast with you and coming onto into the community and hanging out with you, you are a masterful question asker and discoverer, with the ability to thread that in a cohesive and relevant way. And so hearing your thoughts on that alone is going to be super relevant. And like for a lot of people, just being able to do that and to be present with themselves and in the moment, and to listen and to respond spontaneously, that solves for a lot of the quote unquote tonality problems. Because like I said, a lot of this is just unlearning. A baby knows how to get your attention with high stakes and produce that sound in a way that like they can do for hours today, and then, you know, every day after that with no fatigue. But with the tonality stuff, and when people talk about it, the only, I guess, area for growth there is just that people will tell you what to sound like, but they don't tell you how to make that sound not out of any kind of gatekeeping way, but just because they can't. It's just vocal knowledge and experience, which is where all the years of voice lessons and getting on stage comes in. And so to your question, or to that point that you made, the head voice is what we associate, creates the effects that we associate with empathy and with softer, more accessible, less confrontational, whatever. All that is that's just the cricothyroid muscle. That's just like this one part of your vocal anatomy coming together, or rather the certain parts of your vocal folds coming together to make a certain sound. Whereas the chest voice is thyroarytenoid. It's the thicker, fatter parts. It's how you get the versus That's all.
Yeah. I think the comparison you just made there is like all of this, it's people can tell you what to do, but it's difficult to tell you how to do it. I think that ties together with just like sales in general pretty well. It's all about like a consistent effort and reps and practice and learning and like failing to get better. Which, dude, honestly is probably like, do you feel like, besides you, I mean, you're obviously just a sharp dude in general. Like, you've got the degree, you went, to the established, the esteemed school. And just speaking with you, like, I know you're like a sharp dude. Do you think the work that you had done previously vocally, not necessarily like how you spoke, did it make it did it make sales easier for you? But the lessons in learning that, like, how did those apply to you learning sales?
Oh, dude. Okay, here we go. All right, in no particular order. When I say a couple of people at this school made me who I am, they held me to a standard that nobody else was holding me to, that was really aligned with the kind of person that I wanted to be. So in the stage world, like, you can't ever show up late. Late is on time. On time is 5 to 15 minutes in the chair before the rehearsal starts. A lot of reasons for that, but ultimately, like, that's a big one. One of the biggest lessons that I got from a mentor at Rice, he was actually the reason that I decided to go to this school. There were a lot, full scholarship and fellowship, getting paid to go there was one. But the way that he trained people to be musicians was a big one. And I'd heard that from some people that I really respected. Let me give you an example. The first thing that he told me, that he had me do, was, you are going to bar every single thing that you sing, which means that you're going to basically put a slash on the beat through every single note that you have in the score. That seems like really elementary and dumb, and I'd never learned any rolls or any pieces like that before. But it allows you to be so precise and so aware of where you are in a piece of music that you never get lost and you end up learning it really perfectly. So like when I look at this, very complex piece of music, Midsummer Night's Dream by Benjamin Britten, I sang the roll of bottom. It's the biggest and hardest roll in the show. Every single note has a line on the beat. And that roll, I performed that roll. I learned that roll so well that I got like the most prestigious. I got two of the most prestigious fellowships that they offer. One was the Brockman Fellowship. Bob Brockman, total badass dude. He's a story for if we have time, I'll tell you about him. Sales guy. But the other fellowship that I got was between the music school and the architecture school. It's awarded to one student per year based on faculty nomination. So my role of bottom got me faculty nominated, and I won this fellowship. The next year, they put on a show just for me, Johnny Skeeky. I was playing Johnny Skeeky. I looked at the role of Johnny Skeeky, and I was like, this is not nearly, I didn't think that it looked on the page nearly as hard as bottom. And so I spent all summer at Aspen, focusing on other stuff, developing other skills. And I took for granted the amount of work that I had to do to learn that in this way, to learn bottom in this way. And I got there and he was like, dude, bottom was the best prepared thing I've ever seen in like my professional career. This is the worst. What happened? And I was like, dude, I thought it was, I really underestimated how much work this was going to be. And I'm really sorry. I really screwed up. And the big lesson there was like, even if it seems like it's easy, put in the amount of work that it's going to be hard. Leave like absolutely nothing to chance. So even if you think it's going to be like a casual, this is going to be an easy call, like they're already signed, like put in all of the work as if it's your dream client for every client. And it's really that idea of like how you do anything is the way you do everything. And then there's the idea of just, you know, when I go back and listen to me singing in like 2015 or 2013, or I'm desperate to get recordings of me from those early years of singing before I knew this is what I was going to do or was going to have this impact on my life. I want to see what I was doing there well and not well, naturally, because the voice is always changing. And so like when I go back to, I was getting professional jobs, whatever, a couple of years ago, there's still stuff that I wasn't doing then that I'm doing now. And so you can always be improving. And the joy of that, the way that you don't burn out on that, if it's basically you're going to be doing it endlessly forever. You're sprinting without any finish line in sight. The way to get enjoyment in that and to not burn out is to find joy in the process, to stay curious, and to make sure that it's aligned to some higher purpose. That's how you avoid burnout forever. So those were really the big lessons that I got there. And also a big carryover that I found, especially in B2B sales, is that the salesperson and the singer, they're both like the tips of the spear, rather, or what they do, what the audience sees, they only see that. But your ability to do that is built on a village. There's the lighting designer, the costume designer, the director, the people who prepared you in the music. There's the engineers who you asked, hey, how does this product work? There's the founder who had the vision to build it. There's the sales engineer who's going to come in and help you implement it. The subject matter expert who's going to connect with somebody on a different level. The SDR, the appointment setter who lined that thing up in the first place. Marketing who channeled that desire. Like, you are nothing if not a part of a team. And so you have so much more responsibility because you are where all of the attention and all the celebration goes. And you have to stay aware of that at all times.
Dude, that's sauce, bro. That was really, I mean, it's all like so true. Like the stuff that I tell, especially like new, because I work with a lot of guys who are like newer to sales. It's like almost everything. I mean, basically everything you said right there is exactly what I would tell people when they're not sure what's next, or when they're having a hard time, or they had like, you know, a deal fell through and they're like, why did that happen? So I'm really glad you shared that for the audience. But you mentioned, go ahead.
Wait, can I just add one piece of color in there?
Yeah.
And this is especially relevant for people who are appointment setters or SDRs looking to move into a closing role. When you treat your job as if you are in that closing role, because you will have to be prospecting, you will have to be appointment setting, it totally changes how you show up. And the correlation there, or the parallel there to the stage, is if you are playing a supporting role or you're not the lead character, if you treat that as if you are, with all the seriousness and intent as if you were the lead character, your performance is gonna change. If you are in the practice room visualizing that you're taking a bow before a huge packed audience, you will compress the amount of time that it takes before you are actually doing that for real.
So younger guys and anybody listening, just take whatever you're doing seriously. Like take it seriously, and wherever you want to be, start acting like you're there already, and you'll get there faster.
But at the same time, it's not that serious, you know? Nobody gets out of here alive. It's just sales. It's just playing dress up and singing on stage. Like, it's not life or death, dude. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, dude. What were you about to say before I went on that little tangent?
No, no. You were mentioning how like the voice changes, and I know a lot of the guys as well, younger dudes, probably haven't found their voice yet. How did you see your own voice change through like, from when you were like a late teen to, I'm sorry, early to mid 20s and then going on from there? Um, how did your voice change, or how do voices typically change, or can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things in here that I want to make sure I hit. You said like find your voice or haven't found their voice. That's literal and figurative. And that's always going to be changing. So I got really, dude, I'm super blessed in that I look the way that I sound, and audiences buy that. In other words, like I perfectly fit my quote unquote type. So when I was that role of Gaston, the lowest note in there is a low A in the Mob song, which is his best piece of music in the show. The highest note in there is a high F in the Mob song, and then in Me, which is not in the movie, but it's in the Broadway production. Great song. I was always able to hit those notes easily and with power enough to get over an orchestra. But all of the notes in between, it just they require all, like lining up your voice perfectly requires a lot of very delicate muscle. I'm trying to think of the word here. Muscle awareness, muscle balance. It'll come to me as soon as we hang up, dude, of course. But you start to develop you become much more aware of that the more that you train at a high level, and just the more reps you get in on it, which takes time. But then the actual like musculature itself and the comfort that your folds have coming together in a certain position, right? Because it's all about being able to be turned over. Your larynx actually goes from like this sort of the tip right here, it's pointed like that. You ultimately want it to be tipped over, but that requires muscular action and the ability to sustain it there. You get more comfortable with that and they're stable as you get older. And then the sound that you make by default on those notes in between starts to change and become richer and more fuller. In other words, you're able to carry the qualities of that lower range, the bottom of where it's mostly chest voice. You're able to carry those qualities up into the higher ranges. That just takes time. It's kind of like a really gifted running back in high school. He might be just as good of a running back as he will be later in the pros, but his body he just has to get bigger. He just has to get denser. He's got to get stronger, and everything that comes along with that. Steroids can't force that. Nothing but just time and maturing can change that. So what I've seen in my voice is I've seen that. I've also seen my ability to reliably hit higher notes. It happens about a half step every year and a half increases, and the same thing on the lower range. What I'm able to do and colors that I'm able to bring out on demand and to a certain standard in between there also is starting to solidify. For example, for the baritone, it's really important that you sing this range, the passaggio, which is determined by the rest of your voice. For me, that's about B natural to E natural. The key notes for me are C natural, C sharp, and D. What I'm able to do and achieve on those notes now is much different than it was 5, 10, even 3 years ago. Part of that is like, oh, I just had a voice lesson with my teacher. He just gave me an idea. Now I feel it all differently. But it's also my voice is more ready and more mature. So to guys who are frustrated with that, like just understand your voice is going to change, and you will get even the non-singer guys, your voice is going to change. That's okay. You stay curious, you stay aware, you stay exploring and implementing, it'll be fine. As long as you are speaking with your authentic voice and you're not like falsifying some range or shoving it down somewhere it doesn't belong, it'll do what it's supposed to do. But then the figurative part of finding your voice, that's more about like, finding how comfortable you are with yourself, articulating to yourself and exploring like what your purpose is, like what you're doing here on earth, how you feel, what are your values, what's important to you, what makes up those values, how do you like, what habits and actions do you take that line them up in your actual life? In other words, like, are you who you say you are? You have these values. Do your actions reflect that? Does your thinking reflect that? That's another thing that's going to be constantly evolving. And again, like nothing but curiosity and reps and failures and being aware of failures and inconsistencies and learning from them is going to allow them to form. So finding your voice figuratively and literally, it's just an ongoing journey of curiosity, self-awareness, not taking things too seriously, and setting a high standard.
Dude, you're answering these questions so thoroughly. I'm very impressed. It's very good. Very good for our audience, man. This is a little tonality speech masterclass. He usually charges $9.97 for this, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Just kidding, it's $1,500.
Yeah. So, dude, this has been awesome so far. We got about 5-10 minutes left here, specifically for our sales guys listening in, whether they are in the high ticket world, in the B2B SaaS world, wherever they are. What are some things that they can work on their own and kind of take with and run to likely improve their vocal baseline?
All right, let's start with the tangible thing first. We talk a lot about the chest voice, and a little bit about the head voice. It's really easy, especially for people, usually men of a certain temperament, to think that it's got to be all or nothing. That is like having super high testosterone with zero estrogen. You need estrogen. Trust me, like you don't want to have zero estrogen levels. You need some head voice. You need some chest voice. You've got to find the balance that is best. When we talk about the chest voice, I give this example of and I will often have people put their hands on their chest and try to feel vibration there. That's resonance. Resonance is just a sympathetic vibration. It just means that you are doing something muscularly that is allowing sound to vibrate in other parts of your body, different than just your vocal, different than just in your larynx. But that hand on the chest is a proprioceptive cue. It's information from the outside world. All that we're really trying to do there is just get you to phonate, bring your folds together without compensatory action, using your jaw and your tongue to make the sound. So if you can just relax your jaw and relax your tongue like you're dumb in the dentist chair, and just play around with that, that's really going to get that chest voice to open up. That's like the foundation of your sound. And then from there, head voice is just like it's kind of like a baby's cry. If you go, ah, ah, and you feel where is that vibrating or where do you kind of feel that living, it's going to be up in your head, maybe like right behind your nose. And then if you blend those two together, not necessarily 100% of one or zero of the other, just find a balance. And that's going to be your true north. But then the other sensation that we want to look for is this ring or this buzz. And that is what lets you know that you are resonating optimally, right? The balance is correct. That buzz is an indication of the singer's formant, which is an acoustic phenomenon. That's what allows a singer's sound or a classical actor's sound to get over an orchestra into the back of the hall, express all of these different colors and emotions and intents without tiring. So we can't ever rely on what we think that we're hearing. Like right now, I think that I'm talking in a really high, bright way, but you might be hearing my voice is lower and different. But I know that what I hear is correct. And then internally, I feel this kind of buzz or ring. That's the singer's formant. So if you can get that non-jaw, non-tongue action and then get some kind of a buzz, then you're doing pretty spot on. Next might be connecting your speech in a legato way, but time enough for that later. And I've got some videos online that they can see for that. Otherwise, the non-literal stuff would be, you've got to want your prospects to win more than you want to be seen as smart. And when you go in with that intention, they will trust you more. And you also want to ask, again, to that not being seen as smart, don't spend time thinking about having a clever response or a smart response to something, because that takes you out of the moment and it makes sure that you're not able to listen to them almost by definition. But then you will also invariably ask something that's not right or not clever. If you focus on what is obvious and ask what's obvious, it allows you to listen. It allows you to change what you think you're going to ask. And it's going to be that clever, interesting, smart thing. Just because it's obvious doesn't mean that it's stupid.
That's good. That's good. Huh. Dude, I'm like, I feel like I've heard you talk about this stuff quite a bit, but every time I learn something new. And now
Thanks, dude. That's because you're a master learner and listener, and because I'm constantly trying to refine and articulate and learn what I'm learning.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So I asked you this before, and I think we'll ask this and then we'll kind of plug your stuff where people can find you. But I have this problem with, and I've asked you this before, but a lot of sales calls, I start to lose my voice like pretty easily. And also, I was thinking about this, like, I can project my voice, but I don't have like a natural, like, I feel like you, and maybe this is something you've worked on, but you, like, your voice just naturally projects a little bit more. And I feel like for me to do that, like, it does take effort. I can do it, but I don't know how sustainably I could do that. So tips for not losing your voice at the end of like a long day of sales calls and how to like project your voice more effectively.
Yep. Okay. So these will go together. Projecting is different than trying to be loud. Most people want to try to be loud, and they are going to do that speaking from, I think about it like gears. That means that you are basically trying to go really fast in first gear. So of course it's going to tire out sooner. And you're also going to be able to communicate, bring out the colors that you want to bring out in order to communicate the point that you want to communicate less effectively and spontaneously. So if instead of projecting, trying to be loud, we think projecting, I'm trying to be heard and understood, what is the actual tangible thing that we're going for? We're just going for more ring. If I want to be louder here, I'm not going to think increase my decibels. It might happen. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to think, all right, how can I get a little bit more ring in my sound? That's it. Because I've got this good microphone. All I did here was just change how much ring I'm bringing into my sound. So if instead of being louder, you can just think, get more ring and try to be more heard. That's number one. And then once you find that, then it's just a matter of how much ring can I have with as little vocal effort as possible. So if you listen closely, I'm dialing down how loud I'm being or how much juice or gas I'm putting on the pedal of my voice, but I'm still maintaining that ring because I know what it feels like and I know what it sounds like to myself. So if you can learn to speak with the minimum viable ring, you won't lose your voice, or you will lose your voice less, and you will still project as much as you want or need to. Then when it comes to losing your voice, I would also look at what else you might be doing in addition to just having sales calls. Maybe you change the gear that you're speaking in for those sales calls, but what else are you doing? Are you going to a bar? Are you taking a ride on a plane? Are you in an environment where you are tempted to speak louder and in an incorrect gear for a sustained period of time? That's called the Lombard effect. That can really drain your voice. How much water are you drinking? If you get, and this is just stuff that I learned through trial and error, I don't drink or party, I don't drink anymore. I don't party like I used to, but there were times when I would be, out pretty late and drinking a lot or having a couple cigs and not sleeping. Hydration is what saved me. Hydration and the ability to tap into the coordination to rely on technique is what saved me. So how much water are you drinking? And then even seasoned voice professionals, dude, like they lose their voice, or they have to be careful about the vocal capital that they spend. So if it is really important to you and you're doing all these other things and you've got to have your voice dialed in, don't speak. Minimize your speaking. And don't whisper, because whispering, this is not great for your voice. So once you're done with using your voice in the way that you need to, shut up. Voice rest. Great test of discipline too.
Yeah. That's good, dude. Because I know I'm not the only one that deals with that problem, and I'm sure people listening, there's other things you guys
There's one more thing you can do. Since I'm here and I've got the straw handy, you can basically do a series of vocal like warm-ups or cool downs to reduce swelling on your vocal folds. Actually, I'll spare you the whole thing. I've got a couple videos on that, but yeah, you can do some warm-ups. That will help to get you in that gear, keep you in that gear, and then also help heal.
Okay. I think when you came into the community, you did the straw thing. The straw thing. I don't know if you have a better name for it, but
straw phonation on. I mean, there's semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, but it's basically like you just want to get the bubbles and the air bubbles to measure and show that you have airflow going, and then just hum very gently an ooh vowel, ooh or an e. And then this is how you speak. That's the gear that you speak in.
Damn, dude. Every time we talk, I learn something new about this stuff. That's awesome. Where you mentioned some videos, man, and I know people are going to be wanting to check you out, get in contact. I know people after the community thing, they asked me like where to get in contact with you. So hopefully they did. But this time around for audience or for podcast audience, where do they find you? How do they work with you?
They did, man. I talked to a couple of serial sales folks. Dude, you have such an awesome community. Guys, if you are listening to this and you're wanting to learn either sales or just like learn from Dylan and meet some other just kind killers, get into serial sales. But you can find me at Michael Hewitt 23 on all platforms and Unleash Your Voice on YouTube. I've got videos there, and then it's under construction right now, but michaelhewitt.com is where you can go to find basically all things, yes, Michael Hewitt, but unleash your voice.
Cool. Yeah, we'll drop the links below. We didn't even get to talk about how you did, what was it, the Challenger games? Is that what you did?
Oh, the Titan games?
Oh, yeah. We didn't even get to talk about that, but go ask him about it. Go ask him about the time you met The Rock.
Yeah, that was a good time, dude. That'll change your life for sure.
All right, man. Well, it's been good. Hopefully this one downloads just fine for us, so we don't have to do part 3. And yeah, guys, I mean, go and work with Michael. Like obviously, if you don't know by now, he clearly knows his stuff, and he's done some pretty impressive stuff in sales. So if you're a salesperson, increase your voice, get better at sales, go work with Michael. Highly recommend.
Thanks, dude. Y'all, right. Just let me know that you found me through the Serial Sales Podcast or through the Sales Bro Podcast. Love to talk to you.
Cool. I'll take it easy.
Later, y'all. Later, Dylan.